But I just needed to know for sure. Road. Not at all. That's what yeah. Well, dumb me, why didn't I think that? No, but I did. Oh, it's cold here.
Yeah, he usually is. You want some lunch?
Yes, I do.
We didn't get any, we were working. Getting you lunch hour.
Not even pot or anything.
I know, yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Hmm?
Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Franklin, there's no doubt we need a bigger briefcase.
I gotta just start throwing a bunch of that stuff away. Here's that, what they have to.
This one's incomplete. Only one page. Is there a second page? Oh, yeah, you've got 3 or 4 there, Franklin. Why don't you keep them all together so you don't lose them?
Well,
And then I'll look at the 3 together as a package.
How's Maggie foot?
I'm okay.
Whatever.
That, those two.
No, this one is separate.
People aren't constant. You can't get to. Say you've got 4 minutes.
I already turned it on. I thought since it was 1:30, we were probably gonna be close.
Here, I want to have it down here.
Oh, we're gonna act on it today?
Well, I told them we would.
No, that's just fine.
I think since they are contracts, though, they should at least go by the county attorney before we
Yeah.
address them. I also haven't had a chance to read them since we just got them today, so I'd like to ask to take care of it next week.
Okay. And besides that, it really should show on the agenda for the public to see.
Yeah.
I'll take, very good, I'll drop it off to Cory then.
I would like
Whoops, I'm
a
sorry.
copy to read the long one, I read the short one, unless you wanna just leave it here in the middle and I can try and get to it this afternoon. Franklin?
Well,
I read the short one. I would like a chance to read the 3-pager before signing it and before you send it to the county attorney so that there's copies.
I'm not making any copies unless Andrew makes it for me now.
Ann, would you mind making some copies for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you, please. I want a copy of that single page one as well.
I don't need that, I already read that one.
You want a copy? Okay. I can have to get that other one too, and I'll make a copy for
Which was,
the single page one.
everything's on there.
You got all 4 pages there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, very well.
I haven't got it written down. How you doing? Good, how about you? Good.
Was that?
One second.
Right at the front door there? He is, makes an assistant, he has a crush. Yeah,
This,
yeah.
Just like so.
Yes. Yes, yes. Great addition. Yes.
Go on, I need that.
So how many rock trucks did they get?
I don't know. It said they showed a lot of
Good.
Is that what you meant?
I'm not so sure they couldn't go up to there and do the same amount again, though.
Oh, no, I haven't yet. I meant to
Huh?
myself.
Probably better than in school.
Right.
I was trying to have a chance to take out Ed Cannon's line and do it. It's a talented, my father and my father-in-law were good builders.
I never used to be
I'm saying that, this is pretty good.
Somebody else.
As long as they're good,
Yeah. It's not gonna be a good size. It's a good guy, dude.
What's that? He's said, recommended we make sure we get all these things right, so you don't have to come back and redo it.
I agree. I'm sure.
As far as the vehicle one, I do think, since it's at the end of the year, we should be getting a statement of our budget to know where that's at,
Mhm.
so that we stay within budget. Until, unless you ask us to put more money into our budget to cover that. We need to make sure before it's signed that we have the money. That's my opinion.
This one,
Yes. Oh, is that one?
this one's just for the room.
Yeah, yeah. That one's fine as the mileage.
The original ones
The others are real good.
Pardon me?
The other ones are good too.
I still didn't hear you,
The
Frank.
other ones run too.
They both are?
One from the fall, the Kalispell one, and the others. The fall.
Oh, okay.
It's 135.
Huh?
Just letting Franklin know it's 135.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
What, 130, 135, calls me back to order. And at 1:30, discussion on employee longevity. Sharon asked when somebody speaks, to say their name, because she has trouble keeping up with it here, so we're all forgetful of that. Okay, well, I talked to Mako, this is here a while back, on this longevity. And the only thing he said to me, he says, I wanna caution, he says, if you do it for one, everybody's gonna want it. And he says it could be quite expensive. So that's the only thing I already know, and at that time, then I tried to get some more information on what it would amount to. And I think there's some here now, but, so I guess it'll, at that point, leave it open to who wants to make comment.
Well, Dana Rouser, Road Department. I guess, you know, we came to you last June, and, you know, the guys questioned the longevity, and I know Franklin, you said you'd look into it, and I see you finally got some stuff here, and Harold sent some stuff to Debbie here. So I guess I'm just gonna kinda open it up as just, I mean, we feel that, you know, we've got probably, I'm gonna say the longest, we've been here the longest, I mean, as far as employees go. except for Val, I think, you know, Val's been here probably longer than anybody, but, I don't see anybody here leaving. I feel that we should be entitled to some longevity. There's counties, other counties, states, cities that have longevity pay, and I just feel that it's important to my guys. I think it's important to me, so, gives you a little incentive, in my opinion. So I don't know what you guys feel about it. I just feel that we should be.
The part I wanna know is, how much it would amount to countywide with the employees. Because if you guys, if the road department goes for it, everyone else is gonna be wanting to go for it too.
Well, I know, sheriff's department's already.
That's by statute.
But I think if we do one, we do them all. I really do. I just don't think it's right. The sheriff's office gets it already by law. And a lot of people complain about that. So, do the road guys put in long hours? Yeah, they do. We all know that. Whether it's snow or flood or whatever. But I just think if we do one department, we do them all. And treat them all alike.
I'm fine with that too. It's just that, I think we should know how much. Now, I see in there that, Harold said that there they give a flat $100 a year.
Well, it says they're kind of different. They're showing,
Yeah.
a little different stuff here, but, I know what Elaine's saying about the long hour thing. I'm not worried about the long hour thing. I'm worried, we're concerned about the long-term situation here. You get these sheriff's deputies over here, and I'm not trying to poke any fun, no disrespect, but how long is the longest deputy been here?
I think that'd be a win.
15-ish?
Okay, I've been here 26. Willie's been here 27, 28. I don't see TJ going anywhere at all. I don't see Mark going anywhere till he either dies or he retires, So, where do we draw the line? My budget can handle a longevity. Any of the other guys here, I don't know about them. So,
What is your budget looking like, Nicole?
I think I have about 40% left still.
So that goes to the road department?
You can have it. I don't wanna work with you.
and how many years have you been here?
11.
Okay, so she's up, above the 10-year range, so.
That's another thing, that some started at maybe 10 or whatever. They start the longevity at a certain,
But on that note, the sheriff's office starts from day one.
Yeah.
Even if that is mandated, that starts from day one.
And most places start at 5.
Most places start at 5.
yeah, the sheriff's, that's by state statute. We have nothing to say on that one.
Why is it state statute that it's for sure?
Because they went to the legislature and got it through. It's exactly why it is.
Okay, see, and I don't know that, so.
Was that in your
Well,
day?
I-
Were you there?
Well, I was there when several other, the clerk and recorders came and different ones. But, it's exactly what it was.
But we kinda like to see it break down, what it would amount to. Say everyone in the county and what it would amount to.
Okay,
If we're talking about $500, $1,000, whatever we're talking about,
Okay.
Well, we know what we're talking about, Franklin. You got this
Well-
spreadsheet. You guys emailed this out.
Yeah, but it,
These are the numbers that Debbie put together, so this is probably the most accurate numbers we're looking at. So we have that.
Is that what you guys are thinking of basing it on? Is that what you guys are looking at?
That's, we'll leave that
The
to
what
the
now?
chairman.
Is this what you guys are looking at basing?
just to get the information. I just asked her to get some information for different years of longevity and then salary basis, so have an idea. And I didn't go through those as what it actually would come to.
I know when these guys came last June, it didn't come up to this, did it?
Some of them did.
Yeah.
Some of the commissioners went back, I'd have to look at our notes, there was a place in eastern Montana, they went back, out of the kindness of their heart, went back 5 years.
Hmm.
That'd be a huge hit for Broadwater County. What is there, 80-some employees in the county? I mean, you go back 8 years, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So was that a small county?
I don't think so. I think
Was
it
it
was
in Oil
small.
County?
No, it was before that.
Oh, okay.
And then Dillon, they went back 10 years when the guys went union on them. The union forced them to go back 10 years. And then in Dillon, when they did that, the road department was the only department that was union, and the commissioners blanketed everybody to make it fair for everybody.
I didn't pencil this out, and it's still, there's quite a bit of them. To get a figure. There's quite a little bit to get figured out there. The thing is, like I say, I would like to see what it's gonna, like you say, where they went back that 5 years, what it'd be hitting, how much a hit this would be. Even though when we go, if we're starting now or the fiscal year, I guess is when. Sure, you know, maybe the budgets are good this year, but we got other years coming. So, I don't know, I guess that's one reason why that, they have used that $100 thing, and
I know if the sheriff's office is over $400 a year, it's really not fair to give us 25% of that. In my opinion. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but it's really not.
This spreadsheet, I guess gives us basis for a discussion. You know, Franklin, you wanna see what the cost is. I respect that. The first box is for 10 years, and the total would be about $35,000. The second box is 20 years and 35,000. 5 years at 40,000. These all look like 1%. So, you know, for discussion's sake, we've got the numbers on what it would cost right here. The discussion, really, Franklin, is,
but how many, that's just per employee, you have to take times the 70 employees we have or whatever.
and we can do that math. That's pretty easy math.
But I mean, to get the figure, that's what we'd have to do.
Well, actually, it seems to me that it very well might be right here in these spreadsheets. This is kind of the information she gave us to start. Harold is the one that gave you pages 3 and 4. You guys got emailed this morning. And that is showing, you know, with 20 years of service, 16, 14, whatever, what the differences are. So we've got all the numbers for having the conversation. I think the conversation really can advance to step 2, because we've got the figures here. They're really small, the font,
That's what I found.
yeah, they are here.
Well, we talked to an individual this morning on some of this stuff. And they're getting, right now, every 5 years of service, they get an extra
1.5%.
1.5%. They start out at 5, what do they start, do they start out at 1.5?
I think they started out at 1.5%, he said.
Of their base. After 5 years, they get another 1.5%. And then as another 5 years, they get another 1.5%. Is that plus 1.5%?
Plus 1.5%, because when he was
Okay.
gonna be getting his 20 years, he was only making 8%.
Yeah.
You'd be making what, DJ?
8%.
8% of the base.
Of the original base pay,
Yeah.
or straight base pay.
And they take it at their anniversary date, when they came to work, every year, in one lump sum.
A lot of counties do it as far as put it in as a small portion every check. But a bunch of them give it to them the end of November, and it's more of a
Christmas.
savings account, Christmas kind of thing, use that money that way. But you can count on it every year.
And like TJ and Mark, now, you know, they've only been here, you know, 8 years. I mean, they're gonna be, you know, considerably less than what Willie and I would be, but, you know, I mean, it's the way it is. I mean, we've been here the longest, and
That's what I'd like to see, some full figures, but
But what more do you wanna see? I mean, if you wanna see more than what you've got here, then you've gotta put some parameters and direct
Well,
Debbie
no, the
into
thing
being
is-
able to put that together, but to have this and just say, I just want more, but what more do you want?
Okay, is it gonna cost the county 5,000 more a year? Is it gonna cost 10,000, 30,000? What's it gonna be? I'd like to know what that figure is for the total 70 employees.
So start with this, and then go from here, and then set up parameters on what else you'd like to look at. This is how you determine what it's gonna cost the
Well, that's what
county.
I'd like to see before we make any decisions.
But you
and
have it
see
here.
what it comes up with. I mean, like I say, it's pretty easy. You know, yourselves on budget, the budget might look good, but next year could be different, and the year after could be real bad, you never know. Go ahead.
it'd cost my department, right now, and this is at $100 per, you know, $100 per
Per year of service.
per year of service. It would cost my department right around $7,500
A year.
per year.
And
My department can
then it's
handle
gonna
it.
go up $100.
Of course, the next year it's gonna be
It'll be
higher.
a little bit more than that, yeah.
And so keep going. So it's gonna start hitting into your budget pretty good. I mean,
Well, it is.
you're yours, but I mean, you're one of, well, how many department heads we have altogether, you know?
Yeah, but you know, look at these other guys. I mean, Nicole, Scott, how long you been here? 4 years. Okay, see, he's not even eligible. What about Mike? Not even eligible yet. Nicole, I mean, she's in the, and how many other employees do we got here that are truly gonna take that hit? I mean, every department's got their own budget, so, you know, I guess that would be my idea, is to see, you know, who department can handle it, who can't, and if you can't, if you wanna get jumped into it, then,
So would you go back 5 years? If you've worked here 5 years, then you get it? Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, I mean, that's normal, I mean, that's kinda what the guy we talked to this morning, that's what he said. That's where they started, they start after 5.
Lewis and Clark County starts after 3. Typically, they start at 5 years. All the road department people we've talked to, besides these guys in Helena, start at 5 years. That receive longevity.
You know, and if that's the case, then other people with their budgets can start thinking about it, you know, I mean. And I'm not saying what's fair for one is fair for all, but, you know, if you start at the 5-year thing, then,
Well, yeah, just to keep that all the way through.
and I'm gonna guarantee in 4 years, I'm gonna be gone. So you ain't gonna have to worry about me. You know,
We're not letting you go, sorry.
sorry.
Do you guys remember when we were doing the budget, and this is important for the argument, that if it costs you such and such this year, you have to be looking at next year and the
Yeah.
next year? I think we all appreciate that, because most of you guys are, well, all of you guys have been really good with your budgets. You understand the basics of budgeting. We had a economic study done for the county, and it showed where we would be going every single year for the next 10 and 15 years. I didn't bring that with me, I didn't think it'd be needed, but it shows an up graph. You look at the last 10-year census and you see an up graph. We're right between Bozeman and Helena. Bozeman is booming right now, faster than it was in 2008. We're right next door to that. We are going to be also growing. We've been growing at 1.4 to 2.4% annually since the last census. 26% from the 2010 census. What I'm saying with that is, as the county grows, it just makes what we saw in the economic study more accurate and solidifies that. With growth means more money comes in for you guys to do your operations. We've had some humps and bumps because of Department of Revenue and some of the subdivision stuff that happened. But that did not affect our growth or our mill levies, which affects each and every one of your budgets. Those would have gone up if it wasn't for the Department of Revenue those 2 years. One of the years we went up enough that it actually just made it neutral. So when you do look at long-term planning, you have to take that into account. Your revenues will grow, as will your expenses. So looking at whatever those expenses are is your job and our job, but realizing that the revenues, chances are,
Yeah. will
be going up. That cancels out any,
Yeah.
or you can't afford it next year or the year after.
That growth cost too, you know, growth, I mean, all of a sudden there's more money coming in quickly like. But it doesn't take long, and it's a proven fact that, like the subdivisions, the services required hits hard in the county budgets. Two things that are stabilize it is ranching and the commercial part. So this, when we're talking about growth on subdivision stuff, it's costly, really.
I think something we need to keep in mind too is the fact that, what does it cost to replace a person? You know, if you give them a little incentive to stay, it's probably saving you money than having to train that person.
Oh, I ain't saying on that part, I'm talking about on this growth, or the revenue,
And of course, with this study, it took in so many different things. So the county's not based on one thing. We're
Yeah.
quite a complicated monster, and that's why we went out for an economic study. But it's a reality that you guys need to be aware of in looking at your budgets and planning for years to come. As far as Elaine's comment with the cost to replace employees, yeah, there's the time element of the advertising, training, interviewing.
Training is big.
It is, especially when you have somebody who's been here for years and years and already knows how to run the equipment, already knows the county roads that need to be sprayed, already knows what the addresses are and what doesn't work and what does where, already has the construction knowledge and knows how to work the nuances of the different projects. These are things that don't necessarily carry a price tag, but have to be looked at as, you know, is this person valued for their experience? Or do we wanna just be a training ground, which can be expensive? So that's another piece that needs to be taken into account.
You get a big help on yours with this SRS, you know, for your budget. It's a good boost, I mean.
Yeah, and that's just for road stuff though, I mean, that has nothing to do with.
You
Well,
can't
it's still-
include SRS,
Yeah, but-
Franklin, because Dana and Jim Hone and Steve McCullough years ago talked about SRS not being used to pay for personnel, but being used for capital expenditures, and that's why we have good machinery. Just like
Well,
this
yeah,
year, excuse me, just like this year, we learned in October we weren't getting SRS.
Yeah.
That just changed last week. So we can't rely on SRS for anything that's ongoing if we wanna be wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's true, but.
Well, I know you can't use wages, but we use it on equipment, well, otherwise, it could be,
Yeah.
it leaves some there for the wages,
Yeah.
or otherwise you'd be, but that's,
But even without that, you know, I mean, I'm still good. I am, I mean,
now, what about
We
the other
reviewed it
departments?
today. You are.
You know,
Huh?
what about the other departments, are they gonna be,
Well, I don't know, that's
Yeah.
up, that's up to them.
yeah, I mean, that's the part we gotta look at too.
But a lot of these other departments only got one or two people in it. You know, now upstairs here at Treasurer's office, that's a different ballgame. You know, cause I mean, there's, how many's in there? There's 5, 6? You know, I
But
don't know
how
that-
many new ones are in there? Joyce would be the longest in there, in that department. But Ann's been here longer than
Yeah,
anybody there.
yeah.
But Bev would be new,
Bev's new, Chase is new,
Chase is new,
Melissa's new.
yeah.
Well, not new, but, yeah, relatively. So, But, you know, now it's just like I do down the road here, I mean, you just gotta kinda get your, you know, just plan ahead. And there's a way to plan ahead, you know, you just gotta do it. But, I don't know, I'd like to see it. My guys would like to see it. I don't know anybody here would like to see it, but I haven't heard from anybody else here today, so I don't know.
I'm sure, I know where you come from here, that, I'm thinking of on down the line what it's gonna be, I don't know, maybe it won't have an effect, but it has to, to a certain extent.
A little bit.
But Franklin, what about the sheriff's office down the line?
Well, I know, but like I
Is it
say,
any different? No.
well, no other than they're there by statute, I mean, but,
But if you look at it like that, Franklin, their budget was smaller than the road department, it's not very long ago.
I got a big one now, though.
They got a huge one now.
Mhm.
there again, growth is a big thing on that. The service is required by the growth. But, I don't know, whatever,
I think that's true of everyone. Service is required, whether you're, you know, whatever your job is, your service is required by the people of this county.
What would be wrong
what do you
with it?
think, Corey?
Well, I didn't see whatever this spreadsheet is that's being passed around, so I haven't had a chance to look at this, and I haven't looked at my budget to see how much room I have in it. Brooke would be eligible in my office, so I gotta have to look at that. So I'd recommend that we figure out where every department is, cause if suddenly you do it, and then some department is in the red because they didn't have room, then they're gonna have to ask you guys for funds to move over there to cover it. I mean, other than that, I'd like to look at a creative way to reward my employees for performance. And I've spent some time talking to Mako, and it's like I just broke the 10 Commandments when I mentioned that, oh, no, you can't reward your employees for performance. And so that seems to me the way that I'd like to do it, but I don't wanna exclude longevity. The problem we have is with not only because we've got a union that's got a lot of control over us, but because of some other statutes. I don't know if I can do performance bonuses or anything like that for my employees. That's what I would like to do. So I'm not saying no on longevity, I am saying I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers. I came up to talk to you about the other issue, I didn't even know this was being discussed, so I'd have to get back to you, but
Corey, when I was at the state, and as a boss, they would never let us reward people with a bonus. I
Well,
would think that would carry down to the counties, but I could be wrong.
yeah, whether it's a bonus or whether it's a raise based on performance, I mean, that's the most effective way to reward good employees, I think, but, you know, I think some of the confines that we have in state and local government, it's kind of anti-capitalist as far as I'm concerned, but that's what we have to live with. But I haven't looked at these numbers yet. I would like to, there's a lot of value, like for example, Brooke, there's a lot of value in her long experience in the office and knowing everybody, and I'd like to recognize that in some way. So I'm not saying no, what I am saying is I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers
That's
yet.
exactly the way
And
I feel too.
I would wanna be able to look at those numbers, to be able to put those calculations into my budget for the upcoming budget year as well. So I think the other question would be the long-term needs where they're gonna grow. I truly believe, where is that? Where, you know, as the population grows, where are we gonna see the demands of other services? And I know nobody probably wants to hear this, but there's gonna be more law enforcement needs. There just is. There's no two ways about it. Some of the investigations we're doing, every week I'm calling deputies on their days off, asking them for stuff on a felony investigation they're doing. Every week I call a deputy on their day off. And, you know, that's too bad. I need the information. So that's the way it goes. So that's something you've got to be aware of. You probably haven't heard a lot of discussion about it, but at some point you probably will.
What would be wrong with having Debbie go and figure out the exact figures for every department and have them ready for us next Monday?
It's fine with me. Is that kind of what you're thinking anyway, or except you're gonna do it on your own, I guess, on yours?
I don't know that I can. What I'm thinking
Oh.
is a long-term plan. I can't, I don't have the answer right now on how to do performance. I just saying, you know, we just implemented a raise, even though it wasn't passed, it was passed last July. You just implemented now. So I think everyone needs to make sure they understand where their budgets are.
And one of the things that we've done in the past, and I think it's something we need to continue, is whenever anyone has come to us for a market adjustment, which is one way to address Corey's issue with his staff, or any departments, is can you justify it? Do you have the money in your budget? Longevity discussion needs to be the same. I agree with Elaine, I don't have a problem at all with asking Debbie to put together some numbers. But she was asked very eye in the sky, put together some numbers without any parameters, so she did. She
Yeah.
put together,
Yeah.
6 different scenarios. What is the scenario that you want to direct Debbie to put together for us?
Well, we had to have a starting place,
That's what we need to discuss. Dana has brought out 5 years, just in discussion, I'm not saying you're sitting on this. TJ, you brought out 3 years. What parameters are we going to give Debbie to put something together for us? That's really what we need to decide. Then we would have more accurate information. These numbers certainly give us a place to start a discussion, but we need to determine the parameters.
And not only that, but the percentage, or compared to $100,
Right? Yep.
those are some of the things that need to be in that.
And like what Harold says, this isn't just for the departments that can afford it, it has to be for
Yeah,
all departments. So those that are a little bit closer to the line, is this what they would prefer over continued discussions about market adjustments? Because we still haven't addressed some departments that we need to. Does that give us an avenue to be able to motivate better than longevity? I don't know, something to discuss and think about. The other thing I'm gonna throw out, I received an email about this, I'm not gonna say who it was from, but another argument for us to discuss is, are your employees who've been here the longest necessarily the best? In order to counteract that argument, there would be a certain responsibility that falls on you guys who've been here the longest to be the leaders of the county, to be the positive voice, to be the one stepping up to do extra. And let me just say the 3 I'm looking at have done all those things. But to continue that, but every employee who is of the longest serving need to be in the same work ethic bucket as you 3. Can we say they all are? If they're not, can we say longevity is a good way to go? Again, things we need to discuss.
Well, I can say for my employees, I mean, I've only got 3, but they're there on time, before on time. They're there as long as they need to be there. They do work longer sometimes just to get something done. And very seldom whine and complain about anything. And to me, that's a lot, because I go throughout this whole state. I mean, just like up in the Mackers conference, I talk to people all the time, and everywhere is not like that. Every department is not like that. I don't know how it is in the rest of the departments here, but my department, I mean, these guys, they'll step out and do anything, anytime you want. And, I mean, whether it's on days off or not, I mean, if you need them, most times you can get 1 or 2 of them to show up, unless, I mean, everybody's got stuff to do on the weekends, but most of the time, they're pretty darn good, so. In my opinion, I
Well,
feel
I remember a
this is good.
situation last winter when, at think it was last winter or the winter before, we had a hellacious snowstorm.
He was in Hawaii.
Oh, Dana.
This is probably not
I
the
got
right
back
time to
though,
be
Tom.
bringing that up, TJ. But who picked up all the slack?
Yes, we did.
But by the same token, some of those guys weren't getting back to the shop until almost midnight, and they were back out there at 5 in the morning.
No.
We
Even
heard
last
that a
year.
couple of times, yeah.
I mean,
And I mean, it's not unusual.
No, last year on the flood, I mean, first of all, we had all the snow. I mean, TJ and I, we were up here in Winston, Mark and Willie were over here, you know, and then right after that, bingo, we got the flood, and I mean, we're all out again, so,
It doesn't happen very often,
no. it
but when
doesn't.
it does, it gets done.
Mhm.
But, you know, these guys are in a different position, I understand that. I mean, they've got set schedules, and that's the way it is, you know, I mean, there's no reason to really come into,
Well, and I think it's important, we're all in the same boat here. You know, it isn't one department versus another. You know, you have an exceptional staff, and it's due to leadership. I pointed at you three because you are the longest serving. Scott, Eric, Corey, Mike, you guys are also tremendous leaders, you're just newer. So I didn't want to in any way exclude you guys. But no, we have to talk about countywide. Does this work countywide? What are the parameters we're going to be asking Debbie to put together for us for a starting point, so we can have a discussion with the numbers? Any ideas?
does every department have to be at the same percent? Everybody's gotta be the same,
I think so.
no child left behind.
Right.
Yeah, percent of the base.
That's going by the wayside.
That's kinda what I wanted.
I'd say start at 1.5, do it 2 ways, do it 3 years back, or 3 years serving, and 5 years serving. There's a place to start.
Absolutely. I'm gonna also ask for, another place to start, and that is 0.1%, no, 0.5%. So 0.5% starting at, year 5. Let's see where that takes us. So we have two extremes, and we can work with that. Cut to the middle if need be, or go to an extreme. Any other ideas from you guys? I see some,
Then each department head would know where they're falling into in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, can we have it actually for our department, for our employees? I mean, we'll know,
she
right?
does spreadsheets by employee, so you'd be able to go through and, okay, here's Corey Swanson, Brooke Dolan, and Wendy. So, yeah.
Wouldn't apply to me though,
Because of your state? Is that
because I'm
essentially it?
elected.
Okay.
Elected officials can't do.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well,
Okay.
if we just, I mean, if we do that, I'm worried this whole elected official salary deal is really gonna start getting weird.
Right, and it would, I think
And
it's,
then that would introduce another algorithm into the deputy pay and.
right, well,
so-
we
And they
have,
already have longevity based on statutes. I mean, I think elected officials need to be exempt from this.
we have some deputies under elected officials, clerk recorder,
I
clerk
mean,
of
sworn
court.
deputies, sheriff's office.
Right, but what would that do to that other question? Is that an element we need to look into?
The union?
No, the deputies serving under clerk and recorder, clerk of court, and justice of the peace. If they get longevity, does it matter that it puts them above 90% of their elected official? Or is longevity separate? It is in a sheriff's department, right? You could have somebody,
So you can't, I think if you do longevity for a deputy official, right? Then you've potentially messed up the 90% part of statute, okay? So then if you go to longevity for the elected official, and that person, that deputy's tied to it, they're not tied to their longevity, they're tied to their boss's longevity, and then the clerk and recorder retires and somebody else gets in and they're at 0 longevity, then that deputy official, their longevity resets to 0. So they, if the statute says they're tied to the salary of their boss, their principal, then we really can't mess with that. I don't think.
can we exclude them and not be in any kind of legal mud?
Yeah, and it's our policy, do what we want with it until we get told we can't. But no, it's,
Oh, okay.
no, I agree, there's potentially some
That's what this
some
says.
questions there. There are some questions there.
Yeah,
Well, I think Harold's point when he says if you do it for one, you do it for all, I think what he means is, you can't do it for this department and not for that, but. But the
And I'd have to
questions,
agree.
sorry,
I'd have to agree with that. Do everybody.
when you have a department that's just of the peace and a deputy only, are you excluding that department? Can we exclude that department because of one being an elected and the other being a deputy? There are lots of legal questions.
And if you went, say, $100, like we talked earlier, instead of percentage, what would that do?
Yeah,
You're talking a finite number of dollars per year. I don't know the answer, just
Yeah.
asking.
yeah.
Well, I guess we're just,
Not only Debbie, it looks to me like we've got some questions for Corey to do some, sorry about that, my friend, to research how do we do this.
well, let's get those figures from here, what Debbie has, and then when Corey has a chance to.
well, the other option is to interpret that 90% as as base salary, and longevity would be an addition on top of that,
And I think that's how the spreadsheet has it.
yeah.
Yeah. Longevity's figured out after the base.
But if you include elected officials in that, then it gets pretty weird with the sheriff's office and the sheriff's deputies. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think she's already got a longevity, right? She does. And the other deputies have their own longevity that operate independently of each other, so that she would have to be excluded. So if
That's
she's
on base though, right?
what's that?
Everything is on the law says that we all have to make the same base.
Right.
And then her longevity's on top of that, so,
So you could make the longevity if you apply to elected officials except the sheriff.
or we could still exclude elected officials because it doesn't mess with the base.
Right. You can
Okay.
do that.
I'd like to hear from Brian, what his thoughts are, he just came in.
I don't know what you guys have talked about already, so.
Well, just go ahead and repeat it, that'll be fine.
The way I look at it is, you need to establish a base salary for all county employees if you wanna do a longevity component. Longevity should never be calculated or never be figured into the base salary. Otherwise, that's how you end up with people making $800,000 a year when they retire. Because every year their base salary goes up too, the amount of their longevity, and that isn't the purpose of it. The state of Montana offers longevity pay to their employees. They do it in a 5-year increment. You get 25 cents an hour for every 5 years that you're a state employee. It doesn't calculate into their base. Their base is set, that longevity increment is added to that to then make their annual salary. I think you'd have to look at it something like that. I kinda like the percentage base, you know, the 1% per year like the sheriff's office gets, that makes sense to me. But again, it's in addition to the base salary. That way you get away from the part of rewarding an employee for just hanging around. You know, yeah, they get a chunk of their pay as a result of being a long-term employee, but they don't get an increase in their base salary because they're not a good long-term employee. They're just an employee. You could come up with a way to correct that for shorter-term employees that are good employees, that are doing above and beyond what their job requirements are, by increasing their base pay. Then their longevity component would also give them a boost for being around longer, but they're getting a little incentive for doing a good job in their base wage. that would be a manager's job to figure that out. How that's done, that's probably a question for our HR consultant. But that's my ideas. If that's different than what you guys have talked about, be glad to hear it.
Well, I'll go back, say we'll get these figures, and then when Corey has time to do a little research and come back to it.
So can we put it on the agenda for next week?
Yeah, I've got a trial next week, but it's not till Wednesday, so I could probably,
Would you rather us wait two?
say again?
Would you rather us wait for 2 weeks?
No, we gotta do it next week, 'cause I'll be gone the following week, so
Okay.
probably, could I give you an update? Oh boy. Maybe on the 1:30 timeframe, I just give you an update on what I found.
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, it's good with me.
Say something. I'm not trying to be, pushy, but, we've been into this for almost a year now, and now all of a sudden something happening. We're getting into another budget year, so I would hope that we try not to drag our feet through this thing so we can get things figured out if things come. So, I'm not.
You guys have to have your budgets done the 1st of June, so, yeah, we appreciate that. We were discussing how close we are to the end of the year just this morning.
It's coming quick.
It is,
So,
yeah.
I'll be.
And really, Dana, for guesstimation purposes for your budget, you can use the spreadsheet here. It'll give you some idea what you're looking
Well,
at.
we've kinda already figured it out a little bit here, so,
Yeah,
before we even came, so,
that's true, you were spouting the numbers. Yeah,
I guess it's just up to the rest of the guys here to get, once Debbie gets the stuff and get it figured out.
hey Dana, how many road crews are all road scholars in the state?
I don't know. There's a bunch,
Is there?
yeah,
We used to be the only one, were we not?
We were one of the very few, yes.
yeah. And just 'cause we don't have as many employees,
Right.
and we all kinda went in at once, but,
And you put training as a priority,
yeah.
which is good management. Just
So,
wanna say that.
anyway, I don't know, there's quite a few departments, and, quite a few road crews that aren't yet, that, they're picking up pretty quick, so.
Okay.
anyway.
Okay, we'll shoot for 1:30 on next Monday then. And Debbie will have hers in too, so.
Can you have her email me whatever those look like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, unless you have any other questions, I guess we'll move on here.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
When do you want the update from us? I'm supposed to go to a meeting in 10 minutes, so do you want us to do that now?
Yeah, probably be the best as soon as it. Yes.
A copy of the figures that you're talking about, so I have an idea where you're starting from.
I'll forward it to you.
Sure.
You could do that today?
I think so. We have Board of Health at 3, so I'll do what I can. Yeah.
So this is just an update on what we talked about, a little bit of what we talked about before the break. And after you told me that what some of the concerns were, I did talk to Sean Higley on the phone after that. And I think there's a couple of different questions that seem to be posed. I think there's maybe some more questions that I'm not really aware of. But number one, I think the first, one question that was asked was, can Mike be considered the general contractor? Can he operate as the general contractor for the project? And on that, there doesn't appear to be anything that says yes or no concretely in law. I mean, and this is only after maybe
I only had about a half hour of research on this, so this is, but, you know, it's very common for public projects like this for there to be an employee who is the owner's representative or the contracting officer representative. That's kind of a natural, and I know people who've done that. If it's a general contractor, then there's something to think about is that there's, in statute under Title 18, the general contractor is supposed to have post a security, a bond for liability for not only for them to perform, but to hold subcontractors accountable to perform according to the project, according to laws on wages, work comp, and safety, and all that stuff. An entity like the county can waive that requirement, but if you waive that requirement, then the county becomes responsible if there's a challenge to any of those things in a lawsuit ultimately in a recovery. And also for a construction lawsuit for a public project like this, the loser pays the cost and the attorney's fees. So what I would recommend is that anybody, whether it's public or private or whoever, generally don't waive that requirement. Now, the subcontractors also are required to put in those securities as well. So there may be a way to say, you know, as a general contractor, we're not requiring Mike to post that security, but the subcontractors are still responsible for their own performance, their own employee requirements, their own safety requirements, etc. Which is something to think about. And that's under Title 18, but then the construction contractor licensing is under 39-9-101, and there are a bunch of exemptions for things where they say you don't have to have a contractor be on the list, I guess, and this would not necessarily fall under one of them. I don't see an exception for a county building being built, or not just a building, but kind of the whole facility. So I think that one's one where I need to do a little more research. I probably need to talk to a bigger county, maybe Mako, folks who've been through one of these projects and see kind of what they do. But so that question, I can't give you a definitive yes or no right now. It may be that even if it's allowed, then you may wanna at least weigh the pros and cons of whether you wanna do it. You certainly save some money, I think, by having, by kind of taking the general contractor out of it. You may not necessarily lose any protection if you have these 3 or 4 different subcontractors who all have their own liability protections. And then Mike would basically be the owner's representative, and then working with all of them individually. But it's something to look at, and I'm gonna continue to look at it. I think the second request is, do we need an architect for the buildings? Now in Title 18, Chapter 2, it says that architects are required, and there's actually several places. Architects are required for these public projects, for public buildings, and the architect's seal has to be on the plans, and when they're submitted for the department, in this case the county, to approve and say, yes, we're gonna do this. If an engineer is also involved in overseeing it, we do have an engineer, we have WWC, their seal has to be on it as well. And the stuff that they have that's in the packet does have their WWC seal on it. So really what it comes down to is these buildings. There's 2 buildings. I mean, there's 2. There's a third little thing, that's not a building. That's what?
No, this is 2
Okay,
buildings.
so just the office building and then the large storage building. So number 1, if the building is a public building, you're required to use an architect. And I think they're both gonna be considered public buildings. So the public's gonna be in them at some point, they're used by a public entity, they're used for public purpose, so. Question though is, the one in particular, the modular building, is a pre-made design, designed by a company. So, there's 2 questions there. One, is there an exemption for modular building? I haven't found one yet. But 2, did that company have a design by an architect? I'm sure they did. So will their architect seal meet that requirement of statute? What I don't know yet is if that architect has to be licensed to perform, or I guess practice the profession in the state of Montana. because I think this company's from out of state. I don't know that that's actually a requirement, I'm looking at that. Second thing is, just actually getting the design of that building with their architect. And if it's approved for, say it's approved in wherever they built that, whatever state, and transported here, that covers it. In other words, I need a little more research on that. Second one is the very large building, which is from a pole barn type building, and again, that would be supplied as a pre-made design by one of the bidding companies. And so on that one, same deal, they need to make sure that they've got that designed by an architect, and we would need that seal on the architect. The way it looks, we don't have to have I don't think we have to have an architect on the whole site design, okay? It's not for all aspects of it, the landscaping, everything. That stuff would all be covered under the engineering work that WWC does. As they finish the whole site, the sewer and all the other utilities that tie in for the buildings. What the buildings themselves do, it's one way or another, probably need to have an architect seal on those, okay? Just to show that they were actually structurally sound. Because what happens if this building collapses, we've got to go back to an architect or the company that made it, and they're gonna be in a whole lot of trouble if they designed and built us a building without an architect saying it's structurally sound. But it's for our own protection as well. So that puts the two issues that I need to spend more time on. One, just whether we can do this general contractor idea. So far, with just a short amount of research, I haven't found anything that says, no, you can't do it. You just gotta look through the process a little bit. And then the second thing is, in confirming these buildings have met the design requirements by an architect. The third one, and I don't really kind of know the whole detail I don't know all the details of what the criticism is, but there's some criticism saying the bid itself is incomplete, so I need to understand more of what that criticism or what the questions are there to nail that down. So at the moment, I don't know enough about what the concerns are there to even identify what I need to work on. So if you know more about that, or if there's a way that we can address those, I would recommend we do that. So for the time being, Mike and I have talked about this, and Sean and I talked about it, and I guess we feel like we ought to at least take a pause here, get these questions answered before going to the next step. I'm not as worried about the concern of, well, if you don't approve it today, then this thing's automatically bumped for another year. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, once you pour the concrete and get some of those things in place, you can work on it, just brush the snow off and keep working, So, Mike, do you have any thoughts you want to add to that?
No, just basically on the architectural design part. When all these buildings are built, they gotta have an architectural design, they have them. To submit permits, so they're gonna supply that. So I'm gonna call tomorrow and confirm that and have them email me that. That's the only thing I know on that part of it.
Yeah, so I think we need to get that info, we need to find out on this general contractor issue, and then again, as far as what the other concerns are with the bid, I don't know what exactly those concerns were. I guess if we're worried about that, we need to get to the bottom of it, whether we have another meeting and we have those guys come in and say, what exactly is the problem here? You'll have to distinguish between someone who thinks there's genuinely something wrong versus someone who didn't get the bid and therefore they're unhappy, but I don't know. Any other thoughts on that?
I think you hit it right.
But I don't know. I don't know who was complaining, and I don't know what the complaints were, so I'm not trying to prejudge that.
Okay, I guess. Again, till we hear back from you again.
Well, it's not gonna be instant on this one.
Yeah.
So the reason I mentioned that I'm gonna be gone the following week, I have to be gone for some guard duty for 2 days. I think that we're talking a few weeks before we're gonna know what the deal is here. I'm not a construction lawyer, so I'm gonna have to spend some time talking to some others and get us down to what are the really important issues we have to focus on, and how much the rest doesn't matter. I don't know that yet.
Okay.
The other thing with the timeline, I appreciate what you said about, yeah, a delay of a little while is gonna make a big difference, other than some of our contractors are already getting busy, which puts us back further on the back burner. But it is what it is. My concern is this project from day one was gonna be paid for by the variety of different departments involved. They have to have their budgets turned in a month. So, do we also put them off? Do we as a commission say, okay, we're not gonna have the departments pay their portions, we're just gonna do pills because we can't work with them? Or is this something where we can go ahead and determine a price per square foot, an approximate, and start working together, despite the fact that we haven't done any of the bid portions of this? I guess what I'm asking, is there a reason we have to hold off on trying to work with our departments to pay for the building, or is this something we can go ahead and start working on? Cause we know what the square footage is, if it goes through.
I don't think there's a reason why you can't talk to departments.
Okay,
You already know what the price is gonna be pretty close. I mean, so, I think you can talk to them.
alright, then I think we need to,
Yeah, I mean, the year, the fiscal year has, we're still a few months before it started, so I mean, you're talking, is there some confidence that this project at least begins in the next fiscal year, which is when all this performance is gonna happen? Unless we run into a real train wreck, I think it's likely that it can, right?
and with department heads having to turn their budgets in a month, I'm a little bit nervous about just kicking the can for a while. They need to know what they're working with so they can build their budgets. Okay, alright. Well, I appreciate, the work you've done so far, both of you, so, thank you.
So I guess
Thank you.
the last thing I'm just saying is that, so if there's more out there that I need to know about to focus on, I need to know what that is. I don't know what it is right now, but these two issues I'll start on and then go from there.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you both very much.
thanks.
You guys are doing GIS next, right?
Yeah. I forget what the agenda says.
Talking with Brenda.
Is there anything other than her budget? On DIS technology, discussion with her on DIS technology and her budget review.
I didn't get a hold of noon, I left a message. I told her, I left it probably at 1:30 on, yeah, the other was at 1:31. I'll put it right after 1:31, or I could have it before that, or 11:30 maybe. But for Monday anyway. Let's see, what do we got here?
I think there's some minutes that need signed.
Pardon?
I think there's some minutes to be signed.
Oh, right, okay. Is there any addition or correction to the minutes for April 13th?
Move we
2015?
approve as submitted.
Second.
Moved and seconded, the minutes be approved for April 15th, or April 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
If you would hand it to me, Franklin, I could just hand it around and nobody has to get up and contort.
On this, you want to read this over first, then on this, what we just talked with the DES, or DNRC people this morning,
I do.
okay?
And again, I'll reiterate my request that it be given to the county attorney for review, as should every contract we sign.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a problem wrong with it, but I think his eyes need to look at it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I
Okay.
agree, I don't think there's any issues. Thanks for saying that.
Here's Commissioner's Pilt for Black Mountain Software, $315. Any question, Richard?
Six-month prorated maintenance. what we've done in the past and what we discussed at the beginning of this project was that we would pay the initiating cost, and beyond that, the departments would pay like they do for the phone, for the internet now. I would like to ask that this be set up as a, per department percentage versus PILT for the commissioners.
Well, let you talk to Debbie on that then.
It wouldn't be Debbie's, it's Tammy's, and you're the chairman, Franklin.
Fire service Rouch, 1890 were, windshield wipers for the county car. I don't know who that is. Claire Davis Rouch?
Health department.
Yep.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Needs a signature for the requester there.
Would you mind
Somebody know there?
if I sign or do you want to?
No, go
That's
ahead.
fine.
I don't mind. Why would I mind?
You
Okay.
wouldn't, but I just thought
And
it was
this,
polite.
with CenturyLink here, that I had last time, and, like they haven't, yeah, got it to Brenda, because she hasn't been here. So just hold on that then. And the other, this request for this, on this, Broadwater Trust account, I called and that gal said she would send it out, but I haven't seen it yet.
What was that one?
It's, I'll just read the first part. An annual report reflecting all transaction receipts and disbursements during the 2014 reporting period, along with the list of assets sent to you this year. Please carefully review this report. It's on the Broadwater, on the trust fund. And,
You might
like-
check with Debbie Randolph on that, as the secretary of the trust, they had a meeting last week. She may have the copy you're looking for.
so anyway, that's still on hold there too.
The CenturyLink, I checked with Tammy on that, I had a list of questions, and that just happened to be one of them. Nobody has CenturyLink yet, only the sheriff's department. Once we get the DIS switchover, and then other departments will have CenturyLink. But we don't yet, so all of those bills are Brenda's. We paid PILT for one of them. I just think that's over. Brenda needs to pay her own bills. That's hers. Yes, Mike,
Okay,
and that could be wrong, but
I don't know, well, okay, CenturyLink was brought in to here, we haven't, I don't think we've been hooked up yet, because we haven't changed over the state, and I think that's happening on the 27th.
oh, okay.
So we
Brenda,
don't have CenturyLink?
we have, the cable got brought in here, but they're not hooked up to it yet. And that's part of the changeover for the internet. Same thing over at the sheriff's department. Okay, their phones are all CenturyLink over there, so I don't know if that's their phone bill, or if that's what I was asked by Tama and Nick, and I gave that bill to Win, because I got asked to bring over CenturyLink and get CenturyLink installed over there, so that when DIS comes in, they can hook up. So they have internet over there, through CenturyLink from DIS.
So maybe that should go to Win so he can sign it and we can approve it.
I gave it to Win,
Oh, good,
and I
okay.
don't know why he hasn't signed it, cause it was like $144?
No, I don't know on this one, but there's also here for, kind of for PILT, for, this is at, the down payment on hardware network upgrade, that's, DSI, I believe. And Brenda did say that that was approved a long time ago. It was coming out of PILT, and that's why she had it on this bill here.
That's separate of the CenturyLink. It's a related incident, but it's a separate company.
Right. Let's see what this bill is here.
CenturyLink's gonna be their new internet. over
This
there,
is,
just like ours.
Right,
The balance forward, 165, a new charge for, it's 208.
The hookup was 144, I thought.
so can you give that to Frank, or to Win, so that we can get it put with the claim and signed, and we can approve it so that it's ready to go by the 27th? Franklin?
Well, if Brenda's gonna be here on, hopefully she'll be here on Monday, so she, I mean, it's her,
Monday is the 27th. I guess my
Okay, that's-
request is there a way that we can ensure that this is done so that we can get the project done and stop wasting money?
Well, does that have to be approved today, that DIS part that Brenda was supposed to be here for today? In order to have DIS come in next week?
that was already approved at DSI, from what I
I don't
understand.
know, today, I thought it was supposed to be approved today.
It should be. The thing is the question is this part of the first package or is this part of the second package that's part of the lawsuit that was delayed, in which case it's Brenda's, not the county's,
Yeah, well, see, there's a county one and then there's Brenda's over there.
right?
And I think they were going in next week on the 27th into Brenda's, because supposedly all of it was approved, but it hasn't been approved in the commissioners meeting for them to go in there. It gets confusing.
I know it, and, yeah, we've approved it, but she's the one that said, no, you can't come in here. And there was a big back and forth
Yeah.
between them, aside from the lawsuit.
Yeah,
So, we've approved it, but the thing is, if this is on top of the original contract, then she needs to pay it from her budget, not from, she can't keep
Yeah.
requesting PILT to pay her bills.
yeah.
And that's what's been happening over and
Well,
over
this is at,
again.
I think the total's probably 12,000, because this is half, it's 6,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I just know that DIS was scheduled to come in, and that's why I thought that it was supposed to be approved today for them to come in. I don't know, I don't even know what it's about today, that's why I came in here.
It's mostly about just trying to get her budget solidified so that,
Oh, it's okay,
yeah, and then the DIS bill is the other thing.
oh, okay,
But, no, I think the issue is who's gonna pay it, not will it get paid, but,
oh. I just didn't know if they were approved to come in yet, or they're approved, they are approved to come in, okay.
yeah. Yeah, and I can send Garrett an email on that if you want, we have the contract.
That's fine, no, cause
Okay.
he links everything through me over there now,
Okay,
so.
yes, we've given the approval.
I didn't know, I just checked.
Yeah, we were never the holdup on this,
I
which has
know
been
you
so
weren't.
frustrating for everybody,
I know,
yeah,
I know all about it.
you know what?
Here's,
I don't have to be here then, no, I don't.
You don't?
I just
No?
thought maybe it was being approved for DIS, I just wanna make sure.
Oh, would you do me a favor, Mike? Would you call Kyle Hopstead and just tell him we're downstairs? He came up to the courtroom and wanted to know if that's where we would be at 3. And we said,
How do I
yeah.
call him?
What's that?
How do I call him?
Would you just call the hospital?
3186.
Yeah,
3186?
and they can either get him a message or patch you through.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
here's a couple test results back in the water sample from silos.
Those green, that's a green and white package, I haven't seen one of those in a while. Those should be going to the silos. Have you been sending those to her? There you go. Tammy said you threw some away, and I was just
I didn't
wondering.
throw away, I give them to Julie,
Oh,
water sample, are you talking water sample? kits?
right, they're not for Julie, they're for the silos, that's why they said the silos on them. If you could either leave them in our mail to get to Sharon, or, send them to her yourself, that would be great. This needs to go to Anna. We need to get those to Sharon, that's where they belong. Okay, Franklin?
Yeah, I'll put them in
Thank
the
you.
box up there for her.
She doesn't
Here's
have a
for the
box.
DEQ, found the Joliet wastewater treatment.
If she doesn't get those from us, she doesn't get the test, and I'm just looking for verification that you'll follow the process, Franklin. I think that's fair to get an answer on.
You ever seen?
For the
I'm not gonna
record,
say
and, I have requested the water sampling, information be delivered to Sharon Walker, at the silos for testing purposes,
By the gym.
yeah. Versus just throwing them at somebody
The
else.
state should be sending it right to there anyway.
Franklin, they won't do that because it's our responsibility. Would you please just try and be an adult about this job?
Here's a fire utilization detention centers other than Montana County commercial established facilities. this on, this is WCC Engineering. No for $1120, just, there's a note on it that says need to talk about. Put that on there.
Not my note.
I did that, and it's because we need to talk about it. Why would this be given to Tammy to put on a claim when we haven't approved paying any administration costs for, grant applications?
So what's it do? It just sits there then? It's a
Okay.
claim put in by
Franklin?
WWC.
Okay, you're the chairman, so you're kind of the point person for all of the county paperwork and contracts, okay? So, what we have here is a request for payment for writing a grant that was not approved. What we need to find out is, was this an error? Is there a reason that WWC would like to be reimbursed for administration costs of a grants not realized? You need to contact WWC and ask them about that, unless this commission has decided that we are going to pay those administration costs. That's what we need to talk about.
Let me see a date on here. I'll get the invoice, oh, here it is, invoice number.
Pardon me.
There's two more, silos. That is, it says nitrate plus, I don't know if that's high or low. So we're gonna wait for Brenda, then I guess we'll discuss that on this 6,400. It should be, and we're still waiting to hear on this other, okay.
Why did these stuck together?
No, I found that weird too. We have Board of Health in 8 minutes. Do we have any more mail, Franklin?
No, I'm just going through and I think we've got it.
They were all Linda's bills, so I just told them.
Perfect.
Can I just clarify something?
Go ahead.
This morning you talked maybe meeting Wednesday with Wynn and Brenda couldn't, but there's no meeting on this Wednesday at all?
No, I left a message for Brendan, but I haven't heard back at noon. So it would be till Monday.
Monday.
That's
There
what's
should
around
be,
again.
because we've got an awful lot to be covered in a month, and I just don't know if we can do it. And it's gonna put her in jeopardy of not being able to abide by Montana state law. But it's, not my decision.
So if you should change your mind, how much notice do you have to give the public if there's a Wednesday meeting?
48 hours.
Which would be a case of tabling the issue, which allows us to continue the meeting on Wednesday. But since that's been opted not to be done, then it'll just be Monday. It is still tabled, but I'll just be on Monday's agenda instead of Wednesdays.
I have one other question for you. Would it be too much trouble to do department heads, the name and what department and a contact number?
Sure, I'd be happy to
It
do
would
that.
make it easier.
Sure.
When you talk, I know the road and I know some of the other ones, but it's hard to understand which.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the mail and everything. Pass you down some of the claims there.
We have 6 minutes to go. Are you going to adjourn our meeting?
Yeah, it's 5 minutes to 3, we'll just adjourn.
Okay.
With our, what I have